questions that you've got. Up at the very back there, Michael, up here.
Oh, here first.
Sorry, go ahead.
When you've scanned it, you have your laser point cloud. Do you go back in and actually tag individual objects and identify it as a door, or as a stairs, or as a floor, or is there any point in doing that?
Well, you see, usually the case that these are built with actual standard components, so depending on the software suite you're using, if it's Revit or BET, the architecture, manufacturers actually make that exact fire door. So you are actually just placing that door into an actual, that the software will straight away extrapolate the wall, and then you're literally then putting that door family in there. So you're not having to go ahead, because in reality we would be specifying a real door which have its own real documentation, so it wouldn't make any sense for us to be modeling customized objects. But having said that though, the podium, yes, I would have put it in as a mass so we know what that is. But I mean, it opens up to huge possibilities that any object you can place in, and again in terms of plant, that's very exciting, because if you have a space and you have a new piece of technology and you want to insert that, that's where that workflow starts to develop.
But Trevor, the art of, shall we say, CAD technicians and drafting and so on is not dead. Not everywhere is, not everything has been modelled and so on. An awful lot of the older buildings that we would have done, shall we say, would not be perfect cubes or whatever. So there is a fair bit of drafting in it as well.
Have you seen anyone using the laser point or laser scanning with avatar or gaming technology? I've seen studies in the States where the government, GSA, the equivalent of the OPW, have done pilot studies with point cloud and laser scanning on buildings, but they're also using avatars and gaming technology to simulate people and how they will evacuate buildings and that sort of stuff.
Yes.
Well, there's an IES plugin for Revit which actually has a module called Simulex, and it'll actually simulate people walking through your building. So again, the idea is once you've got your building information model, the sky's the limit, really.
Thank you. Up at the back here.
Thanks. I have a general question. I don't really know which speaker it's for, but just on all the four talks we've had, the first two said they didn't really want to be on the leading, bleeding edge, being the guinea pigs for new technology. The third speaker was introducing some of the new ideas that are out there, and maybe the fourth speaker has it cracked. My question is, what do we think is the best way to bring R&D ideas out of the third-level universities and into the marketplace to commercialise these wonderful ideas?
Malachy, do you want to take that since you're the number one academic here?
Malachy, you can come up here if you want.
Dr. Alan Moore would disagree with that for starters. I don't think it's a question of taking them out. I think they're there. They're there and they're being used. So I wouldn't class what my students are doing as R&D. What they're doing is applying existing applications to existing technologies and pushing the envelope that way in regards to the analysis and the data that they're getting back from it, and the data comes back to give you information to make informed decisions. So I don't see this as being R&D. I see this as being live and now. And I think the example that we've got here, the point cloud, is absolutely fascinating. I would see that the next step on the point cloud of a building is, and what BIM applications allow you to do, is to apply properties to what is the solid. So the wall is created, then you apply the properties to that wall. So if it's a concrete wall, if it's a 20 Newton concrete wall, or a hollow block wall, a plaster finish or something like that, you apply those properties to that wall, and it starts to become a piece of construction information rather than just a solid from a point cloud. Would be right to say that?
Yeah. Could I just, from a commercial point of view, had we not, shall we say, jumped in at the front, shall we say, been I suppose the first to take on scanning in the country. If we hadn't, we'd, shall we say, I don't think we'd still be here today. We've been out there offering options, and we've moved, shall we say, we're working overseas now as well. So we spent a fair bit of time training our own guys, and a lot of the head banging on what's the best way to do this, how can we do this, and one of the items was the inverted tripod that allows us to go underground with it. From that, we've set up a company called Subsurface Laser Scanning. We're doing old mine shafts, that kind of thing now. So we do spend a fair bit of our own time on R&D, but there are benefits in it.
My own observation on this is that the technology is advancing probably faster than any of us can assimilate. What we're hoping to do in CITA is to actually kind of keep the broadest audience aware of what is actually happening, in the hope that they will find, that a light will go on when you are faced with this specific problem, and you will understand that there actually is perhaps some new technology that can actually help. And there are a large number of people being trained now in this whole BIM and its supporting technology. So the number of what I would describe as knowledgeable people in the broad technical community, I think, is growing fairly significantly. And indeed, the new diploma, Malachy, and congratulations on winning the competition. It's actually a step forward. Sorry, we have another question here.
Thanks. Niall O'Toole, Senior Architect in the Office of Public Works. I'm a dinosaur 3D, but I'm interested, and I think seeing all the technical evolution and presentation, I have one big fear. It's called cultural, and it's education is definitely, and introducing a wide audience to the technology. Design integration means you have to transform your own thinking boundaries. Like, an M&E engineer has to allow an architect in. I have to allow an M&E engineer in, or technician. Those boundaries will simply have to go. We're not there yet. They exist everywhere. And just to give you an example, if you even think bigger, like I know very few architects who can think facilities management, and I'd love to do somewhere. Where do I go to train in this without having to become a full facilities manager or an engineer? And I think that's the gaps where academia, I think we need to fill in how we can bridge those links. And it's not coming up with new degrees, because I'd have to have a multiple of degrees to be able to understand all this. And there is something lovely about being a generalist and not always having to be a specialist in every area. The second observation is that there's a far bigger picture in the whole property market, call it Nanoland, or call it the solicitors in the legal world. I mean, I don't see why, as a property agency, the Office of Public Works, if we would walk into a potential space that we would like to rent or fit out, knowing that this stuff exists, anybody who would keep that out to a standard spec just to show a client what it would look like is a lunatic at this stage. Why would you invest hundreds of thousands of euros in carpets, fit out the kit, the M&E stuff that on day one of the fit out is taken out and thrown away, when you can actually virtually model it, or you can even show a sample area of 10 square meter, and that's it. So there is far more to this that needs to be explored, and in the industry where we interface with all the other decision-making areas, as in budgets, leases, so I think it's fabulous to bring this together, but we need to work on the interconnections. Like if I had to study for 5 or 10 years and then come at the end out knowing all of this, there must be shortcuts somewhere that everybody can be educated enough to interact in that process. That is obviously at the core of this. Thanks.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to indulge you by asking Enda here to describe just very briefly the work you did in the Saudi Embassy in the UK, to actually do something a little different to what you have said there, but it demonstrates, I think, the possibilities of this type of scanning technology.
Is this the plaster work and
Yes.
that? Yeah, I was actually talking to you earlier on. This part of the Crossrail project in London, where there's a Grade A listed 1 building situated on top of the proposed tunnel, and major conservation questions on it, and they've said before you do any work, we need to actually replicate this and be assured that if anything did happen, that we can reproduce the the beautiful plasterwork that's in there. It's a one-off, and what we've actually done, we've done a sample of it. We scanned. We have a handheld minute scanner, and we scanned details of it. We sent them off to our colleagues, and we actually reproduced a 3D plaster model using, shall we say, modern technology. The actual piece now, it wasn't, it was created, shall we say, on a 3D plotter. The actual piece wasn't perfect, but that was to show that this didn't come off the shelf, shall we say. Produced it on a 3D plotter, plaster handed it and went, look, see that on the wall, that's it there. If anything was to happen to the plaster work, we could reproduce it. So we got the contract to basically scan the whole place in minutiae, be they flowers, everything. Stick it on it. The biggest argument was, in 100 years' time, what software will be able to use to read this and reproduce it?
I expect it to be CAD-CAM. I expect that they'll actually be producing digitally operated machines will actually be reproducing the actual carvings. That's the expectation. Any other questions?
Joe, if I could just address that.
Yes.
I think it's a point well made. And how can we expect our professionals, our graduates, to come out into the field and collaborate when they're not doing it in college? We tend to operate in silos in college, where we have building services, construction managers, architects, technologists, all operating, focused on one thing and not collaborating. So that's the challenge for us in education, is to break down those molds and get that collaboration happening. In terms of the challenges that are faced by the various different disciplines, in my opinion, the one discipline that is faced with the most serious challenge is architecture. I think these new methodologies and this way of procuring buildings is a direct challenge to the way the architects are educated currently. And I think that is a debate that needs to happen quickly. And it's happening in the States, and it's happening in Australia. But to me, in Ireland here, the head isn't even out of the sand yet. And we need to challenge that.
Thank you, Malachy.
So just a question for Neil from the DAA. On the project you had 17 contractors and numerous consultants and subcontractors and suppliers. Did you guys use a project collaboration system? And if you did, has it been abandoned? Is all of the design data in there, the knowledge that's embedded in that, left to one side, or is that used as part of your facilities management going forward? You know, where you might have information about why a particular boiler was put in a particular location or a flue was routed a particular way, that now the knowledge is in your head, it's tacit. Is that design knowledge trapped anywhere that in 10 years' time when someone comes in will say, well, why the hell did we run that flue that way? Why can't we go straight up? Is that something that was considered?
To some extent, to answer your question, the answer is yes. We had a system called BIW, which was a digital document management system. All the design documents, all the submittals, all the vendor proposals had to go through a very robust procedure where the consultant in the first instance had to sign off, and me as the client then had to sign off on it, and we provided detailed feedback through this digital document management system. All the drawings were submitted on it, all the drawings were reviewed and commented on the system, and again we did have the foresight to procure that for and a license for the next 20 years. Now, sometimes I call it the black hole of Calcutta. You know, when you're trying to, there's so much information in there that sometimes it can be difficult to extract this. It's like going into the internet, you know. Unless you're looking for something very specific, you could end up browsing for the whole evening and get nothing done, you know. There's a huge amount of information in there, and it does take a fair amount of time to find the information you're looking for. It is available if you're interested enough to dig it out, you know. I'm not sure if it's the best solution. It was one that was imposed on us, and it was one that we did utilise from the cradle again to the grave of the project, and we're going to keep it available and accessible for the next 20 years.
Is there any other?
Thanks very much.
If not, I'll just deal with a few housekeeping items and we will be done. Just one comment on the last question there. One thing you should keep in mind is that the browsers that are being used to search databases are going to change radically, probably in the next 10 years, mostly driven by the need to be able to interrogate diverse medical records databases as part of the whole drive towards drug efficacy and payment by results to pharmaceutical companies. So that whole technology will probably make even the most complex databases readily searchable. But with that, I'd just like to bring the proceedings to an end here. I do want to thank very, very sincerely our speakers here, Neil, Malachy, Enda, and the two Niles here. Very, very good presentations and very informative. And I would like just for a round of applause to thank them. And a little bit of advertising. There are booklets outside for those of you who don't attend CITA functions very often. These are very, very simple guides. There's a large number of them available. Please feel free to take them away and take them back to your organizations. I also want to draw your attention to the fact that there are quite a number of 2- and 3-day courses on BIM-related subjects that are on our website, and they're also, you will see them in this page in your folder. And in addition to that, of course, we in DIT CITA are running the master's degree in BIM. Something to remember if you want to actually get somebody into your organization who actually has an in-depth training in this undoubtedly complex subject. And the only other item that remains is to thank Suzanne, Barbara, Michael, and of course the indefatigable Dr. Hoare for their work in putting this seminar together. And with that, I'm going to say we're done. Thank you.